Well, I think that was a terrific presentation by Malcolm, and thank him for that. It's also testament, I suppose, to the complexity of some of the issues that we're addressing. And what Malcolm didn't really talk about in some respects was the political dynamics of what has been behind the scenes on the contingency fee issues, where MPPs in the Ontario Legislature, the media, Toronto Star especially, are watching that and applying pressure to the bar, to the Law Society quite closely. And so that whole context is something I want to talk about and address today. So at the last plenary, I started with much of the same message that I'm going to deliver again today, but it's in some respects, as I was preparing for this report, I thought a lot of it was still relevant and somewhat worth repeating as well. It is true that the legal profession around the world, and not just in Ontario, is facing a number of challenges. There are the challenges faced by an ever-increasing competitive marketplace. Other professions are doing more and more of what has traditionally been the exclusive domain of lawyers. More clients are looking to do it themselves. Technology is both a driver of efficiency and is making it easier for clients to get what they need from someone other than a lawyer down the street. And of course, we have the challenge of paraprofessionals becoming more involved in the legal marketplace. There is the further challenge of reputation facing the profession and the actions of some that are causing new burdens of regulation that have the potential to hurt everyone if not done right. And of course, there are the economic challenges facing the profession. Your fees are under pressure, your cost of doing business is going up, the income of lawyers across North America is candidly stagnant or falling. I don't put that up there to depress you. I just identify those issues as realities that the profession has to deal with and address, and you, as leaders of the profession, and we as FOLA, have a responsibility to address. But I think that local law associations and FOLA have a big role in helping to address these challenges and helping lawyers succeed in the face of these competitive pressures, at both the local level and the provincial level. So I put this slide up to offer a bit of a snapshot into the plethora of issues that we're dealing with. This is just a partial list of the files that we're watching, we're keeping an eye on, or that we're actively involved with. And over the course of the next day and a half, we'll address many of these issues in greater detail. And some of them we'll address during the breaks and one-on-one conversations or at hospitality, just because we can't, frankly, cover the entire agenda over the day and a half. And I'm told that a week-long FOLA plenary was just not on. So some of these issues, some big, some small, are certainly on our radar. But the common theme that runs through almost all of the issues is that they represent changes to the practice of law and to the way you do business. Some of the changes represent greater competition or pressure on fees and compensation. Some of the issues make your work as a lawyer harder, and some are more time involve more of your time. Some just make it more expensive to practice law. A few of the things we're trying to do are more proactive items meant to make your life as a lawyer a bit easier. Things like the real estate standardized closing documents, for example, or some of the work that we're doing to encourage the Ontario government to promote technologies in the courthouse. But the point is, the list is getting longer and longer, and the need for a strong and unified voice for the practicing bar is greater than ever. Before I go too much further, I want to give into some of the specific advocacy plans that I have planned for the coming year. I want to set a moment to set the environment of what we're dealing with at the political level. So as you know, the Ontario election is set for June 7th, 2018. And that makes the next few months especially silly season. We're about 200 days out from the election. Partisan rhetoric has heightened. Policy proposals from all sides will be tinged with a little extra partisanship. And the incumbent government is doing its best to solidify important constituencies and stakeholder groups with spending announcements and such. The problem for us in many respects is that lawyers and our issues are simply not on the radar, except in mostly negative ways. Issues like contingency fees are being taken up by populist politicians who are often ill-informed on what the real issues are. And I don't mean that as a partisan shot per se, it's just that that's sort of the reality that we're facing. Over at the Law Society, the political environment there is also somewhat interesting, as I point to my friend Sheena. They've been receiving a lot more attention in the media lately, and not all of it has been welcomed perhaps, but they've been dealing with a number of issues and getting more attention from the public and from the provincial government. And of course, the pressure on them has an impact on us as well. They're also in the midst of a leadership change after the resignation of CEO Rob Lapper. And of course, in 2019, they'll be having their own bencher elections set for April the 30th, 2019. Now, on the positive side, at least from my perspective, the public affairs team at the Law Society has been shuffled a bit, and I'm enjoying a very terrific working relationship with Sheena Weir, who has joined us, Aaron Den Hartog, who is, I think, down at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce events the next couple of days, Sabrina Dellin, and Michael Bolkenhuis. They're all, in some way or another, acting as liaisons with us and me on a day-to-day basis. So speaking of advocacy, again, I mentioned this at the last plenary, but I'll mention it again. I don't think lawyers punch their weight in provincial politics as much as they should. Over the past few elections, fewer and fewer lawyers have been elected to the Ontario legislature. 30 years ago, at least a quarter of the MPPs in the legislature were typically lawyers, and often they were community-based small-town lawyers like a lot of you, and many of them were from small firms, so they understood the practice of law at the grassroots level. Today, there are no lawyers in the NDP caucus, 2 in the PC caucus, 5 in the Liberal caucus. That's 7 out of 108 MPPs. And I think this does make a difference. At the federal level, there are more than 50 lawyers in the House of Commons, and I believe at least 40 in the government caucus. Now, many of those lawyers heard the backlash from small business over recently proposed changes to the way small businesses would be taxed, and the earlier issue that arose around how work in progress would be taxed, and I believe those lawyers have had an outsized impact. I mentioned this at the last plenary as well, but it bears repeating, that I also jealously look at what other professions are doing to ensure their voice is heard by elected officials. And I think I spoke about what professional engineers of Ontario, for example, or the professional accountants of Ontario do. They actually run campaign colleges for candidates that arise from their ranks to run for election, or they'll run campaign colleges for volunteers that want to work on campaigns. So in preparation for the 2018 election, I started looking at who are the nominated candidates for each of the parties, and there's some good news on the horizon. We have a number of lawyers and 1 paralegal who have been nominated so far to be candidates. And I'm aware of more lawyers who are seeking nominations for the 3 parties. So on behalf of FOLA, I'm aiming to meet with as many of these candidates who are lawyers as I can and brief them on the issues and start building a rapport and a relationship with them. So as I said, the good news is that there are more lawyers nominated for this election cycle than I certainly can remember in quite some time. The Tories have 13 licensees, 12 lawyers, 1 paralegal. And most, frankly, are in seats where they have a very good chance of winning, so this is a good sign. I would confidentially highlight Roman Baber in York Centre and Angeli Pacis in Mississauga Centre as 2 candidates who are, should Patrick Brown form the next government, be leading contenders to be the next Attorney General. And I could be wrong on that because that's not a decision that I have any insight into. But should the Tories win the next election, those are 2 of at least a few names that I'll be looking for. Angeli is a Filipino-Canadian human rights lawyer who practiced for many years in Montreal before moving to Mississauga a few years ago. I'm not sure if she's active in the Peel Law Association. I've been trying to find out. But she is vice chair of the overall election campaign and was an organizer for Patrick Brown's leadership in the Filipino community, and I think would be a terrific candidate for Attorney General. Roman Baber was legal counsel for Patrick Brown's leadership campaign. I spent a sleepless night one night arguing with him over ballot counting until about 4 a.m. We hugged it out at the end, so we're good. He is a personal injury lawyer, practices in the north end of Toronto, very sympathetic to our positions on contingency fees and the auto insurance side of things, for example, as well. On the Liberal side, the current caucus has 5 lawyers, but 3 of them haven't yet announced whether they'll be running again, although I expect at least 2 of them will. And they've nominated 1 other that I know of so far. And I've heard rumors of at least 1 other lawyer on the Liberal side who is considering seeking a nomination, so that more may emerge. On the NDP side, they've only nominated 1 NDP, or 1 lawyer so far, Nikki Lundqvist from Whitby, Oshawa. She is staff counsel at Unifor in the CEW, and candidly, I wouldn't give her much of a chance of taking that seat. The NDP typically only gets about 16% in that riding. So I raise this point to identify who I'll be focused on in the coming months, in the next 200 days. But I think the local associations need to be working with these candidates and all candidates as well. As I said at the last plenary, I would urge your association and the presidents to add political outreach to your agenda. I would urge you to strike either a committee or have this as something that you as presidents take on as well. I think each association needs to reach out to all candidates, regardless of whether they're lawyers. And that means giving a platform for those candidates to come and speak to your membership. Take them on a tour of the courthouse. I would be willing to wager that many of the candidates have never been inside the courtroom or the courthouse, except maybe for negative reasons. So you never know. So I think those are opportunities for us to build a rapport and a relationship, and this is where you as local community leaders can help as well. Two other quick points about the provincial election. The next election will also reshape the legislature by adding 15 new seats, and most of those seats will be in cities, further eroding the influence of rural Ontario. So something that I'm mindful of as well. On the advocacy side, a quick word about lists and just an operational level detail for many of your associations. At the end of the day, for advocacy campaigns to succeed, we need good lists. We need good information. And in order to exert our influence, we as a collective group, need to make sure that we have the ability to activate our membership quickly. So I know a number of you have excellent lists, but a lot of associations don't break out their membership by practice area, for example. A few of the associations, I understand, don't keep email addresses. They just do regular mailings. I mean, so there's a quite disparity, and I would strongly encourage you that you need more information in order to be able to activate your membership. So when we send information saying, here's an action on family law, for example, that you're able to distribute it to the family law bar as quickly as possible. On the communications side, I just want to highlight a few things that we'll be focusing in on 2018. The first is I'm reiterating our relationship with Advocate Daily, which is a terrific service that allows us to do ghost-written articles and stories, news stories that do get picked up and distributed through social media that we've been quite active in utilizing. We are also subscribing to a feature that allows us to promote our own postings on there for events, for example. So if your association is hosting an event, say the Frontenac Fall Conference, for example, we can post that up there and then try to drive more traffic and more attention to that. The more attention, the more social media piece, I think that all helps to paint the picture that we are a vibrant network of associations across the province. I'll be stepping up our efforts to reach out to media, both at the local and provincial level in the coming years, so that we can speak to more justice-related issues in the coming provincial election. We're presently looking into the creation of both a local recruitment-oriented kind of video, why join your local association, and producing something like that, but also having a video that describes what is FOLA, what are we all about, and then driving some of that through social media channels. And then, of course, as well, we're also going to continue to refresh and update our website and drive traffic to on our social channels. And unless you think that that's frivolous, a typical posting that we'll put up on Twitter, something like that, we usually get 700 to 1,000 impressions and interactions with any one of our tweets. So that picture that was posted last week or 2 weeks ago, where Jay criticized me for posting this picture because she didn't think it was flattering. I want to assure you, no one saw that. Just so you know. She's going to kill me later, I'm sure. And then finally, I'll wrap up with my typical advertisement for some of our fundraising initiatives. The first being our Kenya trip, which is going in November 2018. Right after plenary of 2018, and that is a 12-day trip to Kenya. The folks from Go Ahead Tours are on the back, just outside the door. Please take a look, talk to them. I believe we have about 16 or so far signed up, and hopefully trying to double that as we go. These are great fundraising initiatives for FOLA, but also an opportunity for you to cross an item off your bucket list if you've ever wanted to do a Kenya safari. And we are redoing our very popular China tour. There's a few people in the room who have been on that tour, Bill and John. I've been on it myself, and it is fantastic. It's a great price point and also generates a good amount of revenue for us as well. Please help us promote these to your membership. We've so far had about 175 lawyers and their spouses and friends go on these trips, and we make a couple $100 on each one of those, so this has been a good fundraiser for us. And it's a fantastic trip. It's, again, a great way to cross an item off your bucket list if you've ever wanted to travel to China, because you do see the major sites of Beijing, Shanghai, Suzhou, and Hangzhou. And then finally, I'll reiterate my message, which is, what can I do to serve you better? And I'm eager to come out to your association AGMs. I'm eager to help you in local issues, but I need to know about them. So please let me know. How can I help you? And although I will offer the caveat, if I do come out to your AGM, please give me a little more than 3.5 minutes on your AGM agenda at the end to speak quickly, because there's so much information, there's so many issues that we're trying to deal with that I need a few more minutes on that. And it's a really big province, so I hate driving 3 hours to talk for 5 minutes. But that's just a personal aside. So far I've been out to about 2/3 of the associations across Ontario, put a lot of miles on my car, but it's been worth it, because it's been a great opportunity to get out to more associations and to speak to the membership, to get to know you and your boards, and to identify ways that I can help all of you, and take that information and feedback back to the Law Society and to the provincial government. So with that, any quick questions? I think we're still on time. We're okay. Amazing, we're still on time, but it's early. Any questions, comments, thoughts, criticisms we'll save for later? Well, thank you again for that, and if there's anything I can do to help, I'm honored to serve you and to serve this association. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.